I hope you haven't changed out of your still suit since our last video, because you're gonna need it. We are going back to Arrakis for more spice time. In late 2020, Dune Imperium burst into board games like a sandworm, gobbling up the hearts of deck-building enthusiasts, board game lovers, and Dune fans in its path. In the world of board games, this game is adored. All of the most prominent personalities in the board game world are unanimous in their avowal of its excellence. It is currently ranked as the 6th best board game of all time ever in history. Just ever. Mankind has only made 5 games better than Dune Imperium. But the rivulets of board game conversation that swirl around Dune Imperium haven't quite yet converged with the flow of mainstream awareness. At least not as wholeheartedly as have those that swirl around titles like Wingspan. So before I jump into my discussion of its remake, sequel, successor, UPRISING, I am going to conduct you through a hastily drawn sketch of how Dune Imperium plays. And now, sketches with Jarom. So here's our board with happy little stars on it, and here's some happy little cards. Yes, those are some happy little cards, look at them. In order to win the game and be the gooniest goon in all of Dune, you gotta get 10 victory points. To get those, you need money and reputation. To get monies and rep, you gotta send your employees to space, which is represented by spaces on the board. But to send them to spaces, you have to play cards from your hand that have symbols on them that match the symbols on the spaces you're trying to put your employees on. You want to send your employee to get you a nice can of Nuka-Cola? Oh wait, this is Dune, sorry. A nice bottle of sandworm Kool-Aid? You're gonna need to give them the key to the sandworm closet. And if you have no keys for the sandworm closet, no sandworm juice for you. For now. You'll be constantly buying new cards to add to your deck, you see, which will give you access to many, many more closets with many, many more things in them, like the Mentat. There's also fighting because it's Dune and that's what we do, and to do that you'll send troops, which are cleverly disguised as cubes, to this square. At the end of each round, the cubes will fight. The winner gets a lot of rewards, second place gets rewards, and if you're playing with 4 people, third place gets somewhat lesser rewards, but they're still better off than the person in last place who will always get nothing, because it's Dune. There are some other interesting things running around, like the intrigue cards, which will do insanely broken things whenever you play them, and a tug-of-war kind of dynamic with the faction reputations, in which you can kind of imagine players doing all sorts of things to make one another look bad in front of important people in order to prove to them that they're actually their best friends. But at least that gets you caught up on what Dune Imperium is and why it might be fun to play. And you know, Dune Imperium is fun. The deck building blends sinuously with the worker placement, and competing with other players to charm the factions is a good time. Mapping an efficient route through the wilderness of worker placement locations to milestone achievements like unlocking your Swordmaster or your seat on the High Council is an exercise that will test your ability to innovate. And intrigue cards linger over it all like manifold swords of Damocles, each a dangerous variable. Yet, Dune Imperium is so much more than fun. In fact, I can't confidently guarantee that the word fun will even cross your mind the first time you play it, or even the second. It's cunning. It's deceitful. Looking at it, you think, oh, this is about worker placement and deck building, but really, it's about juggling currency. Solari, water, spice, and yes, even soldiers, because war is really just a way of transforming one kind of currency into points, or just other types of currency, depending on what's at stake in the conflict and how well you fought it. But at the same time, it's not about currencies at all. That's just the game tricking you again, because it's really just about jockeying for guild favor. Ultimately, the lion's share of the points you'll have gained by game's end will have emerged from your relationships with the various factions on the board. All of your riches mean nothing unless important people like you. But converting wealth to influence and influence to victory requires subtlety, liaisons, infiltration, and go-betweens. All of that must be done, but cannot be simultaneously. The cheese of universal domination must be eaten a single bite at a time, and each mouthful may contain fatal fungus. The length of your path to destiny may be limited only by the scope of your ambition, but the path will always fall in shadow and will always be treacherous. Capturing that kind of abstract quality in a theme is a genuine achievement. Playing Imperium, however, I often feel as though the path before me is a little more muddled than I'd like it to be. In a play session of Dune Imperium, I feel like I'm wrestling a grizzly bear that's giving an octopus a piggyback ride, and I just know that if I can get this grizzly bear in a headlock, I'll win. But at the end of a game, after an hour and a half to 2 hours of wrestling this grizzly bear, I find out that actually the whole time I was supposed to be trying to stop the octopus from using its calculator to solve the area of a triangle. And it just kind of feels bad. Or I'll be playing with 4 people and my opponents will take the spots that I want on the board and completely destroy what I'm trying to do, and that feels kind of bad as well. Fortunately, Dune Imperium UPRISING has uprisen, and with it a new era of Dune Imperium. Hello, everybody. Hello, yes. Welcome to the show. We've got a special guest for you tonight, Dune Imperium UPRISING from DIUR Digital. I know, I'm very excited to have him here on the show. So, Mr. UPRISING, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What you doing here?
Where to start? I guess you could say I'm basically for Dune Imperium what the Lord of the Rings movies were to the books. I'm newer, and I'm better.
Oh, Mr. UPRISING, that's quite a,
Oh, no. Don't go getting all sanctimonious on me. You and all the rest of you Tolkien nuts. You know it's true. My only wonder is how Peter Jackson was able to do what he did given the source material he had to work with.
So, Mr. UPRISING, you are not an expansion then?
Sort of. See, kid, I was gonna be a full-blown remake, see. It's what I hear. But then the marketing pukes swing in with their charts and sales projections, you know, the usual old possum run. Convinced the execs an expansion would sell better. So the execs put the heat on the devs to package me up with some extra content they have lying around. It's a tired game, but what can you do? I'm here, I'm better, and that's what counts. So yeah, I am a remake. More like an update, really. But I also got some stuff to seduce the dollars out of the pockets of the collectors. It's a dirty business, but it's the nature of the world, kid. The nature of the world.
Wow, that is quite a story. Now let's take a quick moment here to remind everybody in the audience that opinions of guests do not reflect opinions of the show. All right, so Mr. UPRISING, would you mind terribly if I opened you up and showed your pieces off to everybody?
Open me up.
Okay, now that you've been properly introduced, let's jump straight into what makes Uprising different from the original, starting with worms. They're glistening. They're, as usual, sculpted in such a way as to make you feel dirty every time you pick them up. They increase your army size in the conflict by 3, which is great, as normal troop cubes only do so by 2. If you show up to a conflict with worms and nobody else does, chances are you are going to win that conflict. And that is great for you because when you have a worm in battle, you double any rewards you receive for the conflict. When you are playing Dune Imperium Uprising, you are entering the worm meta. So cozy up with the Fremen to learn the ways of the Shai Halud, grab your maker's hook, set off into the desert, and grab yourself a big old tube. Life in the worm meta is fun. It's fun to use worms, and it's fun to try and formulate counterplay when other people are using them. Speaking of conflict, there's another critical change here, and that's set collection. Now, when you take first place in a conflict, you collect the card for the conflict, putting it face up in your player area. In the top right corner of the card, there will be a symbol. Whenever you have a pair of a single symbol, you'll flip both of those cards face down and immediately score a victory point. I love this change. It speeds the game up a tiny bit, but more importantly, it makes conflict management crucial to keeping victory within reach. This change combines with the worms to make the conflict stage a central point of focus in the game, which serves to sharpen all of the resource exchange processes unfolding in the guts of the board right here, as you're constantly monitoring the flow of your various currencies to make sure you can fund an army of some size every round. Fighting in Dune Uprising is generally always good, which is great because that's consistent with the theme, but also nice because it makes the game edgier, sharper, pointier. If the original Dune Imperium is Baron Harkonnen, ponderous and laden with intrigue, Dune Imperium Uprising is a Fedaykin warrior, limber and fighting fit. But that's not to say that intrigue is in short supply in Dune Imperium Uprising. In fact, it is still around in copious amounts, mostly thanks to spies. In original Imperium, when an opponent puts their agent on a space, that space is essentially dead to you. It may as well not exist on the board for all the good it does you, unless you have a specific intrigue card. Well, in Uprising, that is no longer the case, as long as you play your cards just right. When you place a spy, it'll be connected to 1 or 2 specific locations. If you are ever wanting to visit one of those spaces on a future turn and an opponent's agent is there, you can simply recall your spy to place your agent there as well. Spies can also be used to trigger a host of cards in the new Imperium deck, making them yet another currency you can choose to dabble in. They don't completely remove the tension that comes from opponents being able to block one another's access to certain spaces at key moments. They just afford you the possibility of avoiding an unpleasant situation should you have foresight. I love spies, and you'll probably love them too. Oh, and the Mentat is dead, but you probably don't care because you didn't use him anyway. The Mentat has been replaced with a very useful space on the board that is gated behind a reputation grind. And that is another change that Uprising makes. It gates more spaces on the board behind reputation requirements. This means different players will be accessing different spaces on the board at different points during the game, and that is quite interesting. And this is all awesome. I love it. But what I don't love is the wall. Yes, there are 3 cities that you'll be fighting for control over during the game, just like in the original, but there's a wall around these cities, which means that worms can't compete in battles for control of those cities until the wall has been destroyed. And that's just a hassle to teach new people, and it's tedious to remember while the game is being played. I understand why the rule exists, and it's a fun little thematic twist on everything, but it's just a little annoying. And before I forget, because I was thinking about the wall, CHOAM, everybody's favorite space chum. Convenient, happy, authentic. I have no idea what CHOAM stands for, but CHOAM is here and it's offering out contracts to people willing to take them. And if you take a contract from CHOAM, it's going to give you a special cash payout when you send your agent to a specific part of the board. And that's pretty cool and keeps your coffers full, and it's a fun thing to play with. Also, they added a 6-player variant to Dune Imperium with UPRISING. And yeah, I've never played it. I've never had 5 friends over at the same time who all know how to play Dune Imperium. But I have read the rules, and it looks very weird. You separate your friends into 2 groups of 3, and one is a team that is with the Moadib and the Fremen, and the other is a team with the Emperor and the Harkonnen and sort of their little collective, you know, controlling Arcane and whatnot. One player on each side is like the commander player, and they like outrank the other 2, and it just looks crazy. Frankly, I don't know who was asking for this or whether or not this is even like a selling point for the box, but it's in there. And if you ever have 5 friends over and they're all hankering for something weird and new and perhaps a little unhinged, that could be a good option for your evening. There are other smaller changes, but those are the largest and most significant. And together, well, okay, except for the 6-player variant, but I haven't tried that one. I can't really speak to it. So other than the 6-player variant, together they make the Dune Imperium experience feel leaner, more agile, more battle ready. And if you don't own Dune Imperium and you're thinking like maybe you want to own one, I'd recommend going out and picking this one up first, playing it a few times, and if you like it, going out and picking up the original sometime later when you want to fill out your character roster and get another fat stack of Imperium cards to tinker around with. It's also worth noting that Dune Imperium Uprising is equipped with everything you need to integrate the other 2 expansions to the series, Rise of Ix and Immortality. So you could buy this, then go out and buy Rise of Ix, or Immortality, or both, and then go out and buy the originals sometime later. Or you could buy them in some other order, depending on how you want to do it. All of that is great and valid and works. I would just recommend starting with this box. And that is our review of Dune Imperium Uprising. I hope you found the video informative and maybe a little entertaining. If you did, please like the video, consider subscribing to our channel. We'd love to see you around. If you happen to disagree with anything that I've said in the video, please type up your perspective and add it to the comments. Those kinds of opinions will be really helpful for people who find this video wondering whether or not they should buy the game or what path they should take when confronted by the Dune Imperium purchasing question. Of course, if you happen to have opinions that align with mine, you can always throw those into the comments too. I'd love to read them. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.